So hotel operators should really listen into this, right? Your guests are everything. And the door-to-door experience has to be top-notch.
Wherever I go, I see La Marzocco coffee machine. How is this possible?
I've made a lot of friends, perhaps a lot of enemies too. The coffee shop scene is something that it's very, very, very competitive. In Dubai, the water is very, very salty, and this is our enemy. This city doesn't stop. This market is super hungry. One of the biggest mistakes people do in the operation is...
What are your top 3 tips for making a decent cup of coffee?
You can make a good cup of coffee at home just by...
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee or water?
Coffee.
Coffee or wife? Kidding. If you could share one thing that every coffee drinker should know, what would it be?
Oh.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Bucket Talk. We are here to have real conversations with people shaping the hospitality industry from the inside out. We are inviting some of the most interesting people we know, clients, partners, industry legends, to share what they learned, what's changing, and what really matters behind the scenes. So grab a coffee, or better yet, listen to what goes into a great one, because our first guest knows a thing or two about that. My guest today is someone I had the pleasure of working alongside back in the day, long before the fancy titles and high-end machines entered the picture. Csaba Henter is now the general manager of La Marzocco Middle East, one of the most iconic names in the world of coffee. But before leading the regional operations of a global brand, he was right there on the floor, just like many of us, running service, getting his hands dirty in the hustle of hospitality. He is one of those rare people who truly understands both of the operational chaos of a busy shift and the elegance of a precision-engineered coffee machine. Today, he brings those worlds together, building restaurant life with specialty coffee excellence. Csaba, welcome. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. While you were talking, I brewed a nice cup of coffee, so at least we can enjoy a cup while we're talking. That's what I'm talking about.
I honestly expected nothing less from you, so thank you very much. What have you got for us here?
So we have a single origin Rwanda here, actually brewed as a filter coffee, not an espresso. That is actually finished right now. Please enjoy. You should have a nice, very fruity aroma, very light body, and it's not so much of a long brew. I prepared everything. The water for a filter coffee ideally is not as hot as a espresso. So the espresso we brew it at 92 degrees. Your filter coffee, especially if it's a single origin, and this one is an anaerobic fermented process, which brings a lot different flavor out of the cup.
It is not only amazing, but I love the fact that it doesn't burn my mouth straight away. I can have it straight, right after making. And this is something actually I learned very recently, which is a shame, to be honest with you, working all these years in the industry, because, I think we're just used to making coffee, making tea, let's boil it, piping hot water over it, you have to wait. And, in reality, I learned this actually from tea first, that you should barely actually burn those tea or those coffee that you're making with piping hot water. And
correct. One of the biggest mistake people do in the operation is using the hot water from the espresso machine to make your tea, which is basically goes against anything that you would want, not just for the tea, but as well as for the espresso machine. Because if you're going to use too much of water from the steam boiler, whereas a steam boiler runs at 120 plus degrees, if you remove the hot water from the steam boiler, now you have no steam. So making 5 big pot of Earl Grey tea for your lunch, now suddenly once you have an order for 4 cappuccino, you're short on steam. Your steam is going to struggle because it's going to be wet. There is not enough pressure. And now suddenly you're going to be blaming the machine, and you're going to be blaming the milk that is not cold enough, and you cannot form a proper milk for your cappuccino. So yeah, if you make tea, you need a water boiler to make tea. If you make a filter coffee, you need another type of water boiler that is temperature controlled, so you know what you're doing.
Man, I love this one. Um, okay, I have a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
Obviously, there will be a lot of coffee related, but some of them is more about your journey, more about knowing how you get there. Because I think hospitality is the industry that many people get into because of passion, but
Correct.
very often people lose their way. I was one of those back then. I have to admit, I was doing for years what I was doing, but then I couldn't really figure out, okay, what next, how you do that. And I think you are one of those great examples that figured out a way to stay into hospitality, but do something that you truly love.
Yes. So coffee was always one of those that somehow everybody's in it, everybody likes it, everybody drinks it, but nobody knows everything about it. And it's a very big topic to open up. Tea, of course, could be another one, but it's less techy, right? So I like machines, I like tech, I like to have certain precise things to be done. And along my FMB journey, I had the pleasure to work with Marzocco machines. So I've noticed the difference and I understood the difference. And one thing led to the other. When I've actually met the people from Marzocco, I came to realize that this is a really, really good company to work for. And so as in the FMB journey, it really does matter who you want to work for and what's your purpose in that position.
Looking back, your experience behind the bar, did it shape how you approach your role at Marzocco?
Yes, definitely. I would say the approach of Marzocco is building relationships. And throughout my FMB career, wherever I've worked, I'm very happy to say that I have made a lot of friends, perhaps a lot of enemies too, but that's a discussion for another time. Looking through the years of operation, different venues, different countries, I've made a lot of friends for a shorter or longer period of time. And a good FMB operator should understand that having your regulars coming back from day after day, from week after week, is the most important thing, right? Your guests are everything. And the door-to-door experience has to be top-notch. And it's very, very bothering for me, not because now I'm working for Marzocco, but even back in the days, that the door-to-door experience doesn't just end with your desserts. It ends with a cup of coffee or a cup of hot drink after your meal. And then the last touch for your guest is actually the thank you and goodbye. And it's 95% of the restaurants out there that is missing this.
It's very funny because, we are now working with a lot of top operators, but actually very few who, really understands the importance, not just coffee, but usually the end part of a meal. Let it be lunch or dinner, doesn't matter. They always say that don't neglect your desserts order, your dessert recommendation, or how you present them, because usually guest remembers the last part of the meal. And then, of course, coffee goes afterwards. So especially when you're working with, I think, a clientele from Europe, where usually, coffee is really appreciated. Italy, Spain, I'm talking about for them, if the coffee is not right in a restaurant, they call the restaurant names. The food can be great, the service can be great, but if the service is not right, they will let you know. They will let you know, and then they will definitely consider that when they're going out. If the coffee is not right, they will just simply, not going for an important meeting or an important date or for a dinner with friends, because they, coffee, I think the quality of coffee is overall associated with the quality of the restaurant. If you don't get that right, then people are, going to start to ask questions. If the coffee is not right, then how's the food prepared? So this is very interesting. But tell me something. The other day, I'm always, I'm one of those guys. I like to work in different places. I don't have an office for this reason, because I like to work from my clients' places. I go out to coffees, and wherever I go, I see Marzocco coffee machine. Now, it's maybe because since I know you, my eyes is more drawn towards to it, but I just cannot get my head around it. How is it possible? You guys have no competition. You do something much better than others. Or how is it possible that if I go to a restaurant or I go to a coffee shop, it's like, 99% I'm going to see your coffee machine there. How is this possible?
Well, I'm very happy to hear that you see Marzocco's everywhere. So let me just start right there. Our company motto is to build relationship to enrich life of others. And when you buy a piece of equipment, that's just a piece of equipment. When you buy La Marzocco, people want to belong. And that's the difference. We build communities, we care about the customers, we care about the end users, we care about the shop owners or cafe owners or restaurant owners and operators. And I think the key part here is not just about the machine. Yes, we have fantastic R&D, we have great design, everything is handmade and hand-assembled in Florence. Great, amazing. But there is more to it because, like I said, people want to belong to a certain crowd, right?
That's for sure. When you buy a brand, you want to have a feeling of why you buy that.
Correct. So you have your Android versus Apple people. When you look at Formula One, you have your McLaren versus Ferrari. You have Mercedes versus BMW, and so on and so forth. So every single industry would have their own little challengers, right? And I would say our competition is very fierce.
Oh, really?
It is very, very fierce. There are a lot of new equipments born on a yearly basis. Some are extremely beautiful, some are extremely techy and super high-end and extremely expensive. But somehow we always go back to the base and we listen to people. And I think this is what makes the difference. So wherever you're going to go, there is going to be always two people involved in making coffee. Always. Always. There is somebody who's going to be taking your order because the barista 99% of the time is not taking your order, right? So that person might know very little about your cup of coffee, or your waiter might know very little about the cup of coffee. So you have a wall that you need to break down when it comes to operators and teach every single person about a good cup of coffee. However, on the customer side of you, when you go into a coffee shop and you see a La Marzocco machine on the counter, for some reason, people feel a bit more comfortable of whatever is going to come out from there, I'm going to like
That's
it.
That's kind of an indicator that something good brewing there. Yeah, that's for sure. But in this sense, it
is not necessarily the reality, but
that was my follow-up question.
But before you taste anything, before you smell anything, right, with your senses, the very first thing what you do is you see. If you like what you see, you will want to try. Once you try it and you actually understood that, hey, what I'm seeing is beautiful and good looking, there is a higher percentage that you're actually going to be liking what you're smelling and what you're tasting. Again, this is not set in stone, but this is 50% of a job done. When you're looking at a beautiful cafe, you're more inclined to go into that place. When you see a beautiful car, a bike, a watch, a clothes, whatever that might be, you're more inclined to go and try it and check it and wanting to purchase it. Yeah?
So my question to you is this. You guys have some serious machines, right? There's no doubt about that. How do you guys transfer this knowledge to the restaurant stuff? How can people talk about La Marzocco or just coffee in general like you? Because, I'm giving you a simple example. I think many of our viewers will understand that. Usually when you start to work in a restaurant, you start obviously at the bottom. If you are in the kitchen, you start as a commie or you start as a food runner. Who's making the coffee in most restaurants? The most junior stuff there is, the food runners, the one just started yesterday. Usually this is the entry position in a restaurant. You start at the back of house, you don't know the food, you might not speak the best English, so they give you something that you can do. Let it be polishing plates or doing coffees. But more often than not, it is not the most skilled or the most studied employee going to do the coffee. What do you guys do in this situation? If you land the restaurant today, what do you do? Obviously, I'm just guessing. I'm just shooting blanks in the air here. You're not just giving the machine. There is a assembly book, and then you ask them to put it together. Obviously, you come, you install it. But do you guys actually provide training, or how is this knowledge transferred? Because I think this is always the key. If you look at any brand in the world, it doesn't have to be a coffee brand. It can be literally anything. There is so much information out there, right? But I think in today's world, we have a problem of too much information. 15, 20 years ago, we had not enough information. Now we have too much information. How is this translate to the employee, which is going to translate to the guest?
We work with not just coffee shops, but coffee roasters, coffee people, the real coffee people who actually knows how to brew and so on and so forth. They are our soldiers on the ground. They are the ones who are going to be actually teaching the restaurant how to brew their cup of coffee, because they know their coffee. We know our machines. So there is a chain of reactions or chain of supply basically that happens, that we train our coffee partners. Our coffee partners are going to go and sell their coffee along with their machine to the restaurant. So we don't sell straight. We don't have a straight B2B market, go-to-market strategy. We are one of those companies that we want to work with coffee roasters. We want to work with the coffee guys because they get very excited about our tech and our machine. And they're actually the one who sells it to the end users, coffee shops, cafes, restaurants, an ice cream shop, you name it. The information of how to use it and how to make a good cup of coffee, it's very often lost in the whole operation. Like you said, it's always the commies and it's always the barback who's gonna go and make the espressos and the coffees and you know, and it leads back to my point, what I've said before, that your door-to-door experience, it doesn't end with the desserts. It ends with a nice cup of coffee. And that's just one part of it. The second part of not focusing too much of an operation, but the actual supply. So there will be people who's going to say, listen, your machine is very expensive. I don't think we can afford it. And frankly speaking, I don't think they have done their math. So when you want to have a good cup of coffee, it's actually not expensive. A good cup of coffee shouldn't be expensive, put it that way. Yes, coffee prices of green beans are on the rise and it's been going up and up, so as cocoa and many other commodities. But that's not the reason for a restaurant to go and skip on this very important step to have a good cup of coffee, given that to be a breakfast or lunch or a dinner meal. And that is something that people, again, just often forget, that it's not just another thing. It could be a complementary thing. Just like when you have a nice meal, you want to have a nice glass of wine, or you want to have the right water, or you want to have the right cocktail, and so on and so forth. If you have the right desserts matched with the right cup of coffee, it's a complementary thing that should be going in hand in hand. You don't necessarily want to have just a bitter, espresso that it's already been delivered to you minutes ago and it's cold and it's flat and there's no crema on the top of the coffee anymore, and it's horrible to drink it and it's not enjoyable, but you're afraid to go and say, oh, can I have another one? Because you actually didn't ask me, when do I want my coffee? Do I want it after my dessert? Do I want it with my dessert? So the operation is a key factor here, how they're setting up their cycle of service, right?
If you just want to maybe elaborate a tiny bit on what kind of support do you guys give? This is actually Marzocco coming with a training on how to use the machine rather than just how to clean it or how to I don't know, operate it.
We've launched our new Marzocco application. So now, So now we have merged the Marzocco Home and Marzocco Pro. So now it's all under one, and every single coffee machine of ours right now has built-in IoT. So you can connect it to Wi-Fi, even the home as well as the bar machines. What does it mean? Whenever you arrive home and you actually received your brand new coffee machine for home, there is an instructions and there's manuals, not just in the box, but as well as in the application. Very straightforward guidelines and videos to make sure, and multiple languages to make sure that you know how to set up your coffee machine. When it comes to brewing, we always rely on the coffee people. The most common knowledge of how to grind beans and how to brew an espresso, it's a very common knowledge that it's widely available out there. But we do have obviously lots of trainings, lots of product, days or events when we show our products or we train people, open days, lots of pop-ups, lots of partnerships where we try to get engaged with different crowds, with different people and teach them about the espresso. Going down to the nitty gritty, brewing your cup of espresso, it's not a hard task. It just takes a bit of practice. So most people are really afraid of it because they don't understand, oh, too many machines and this guy is putting this many grams here and that many grams there, and they get lost between the whole process, while it's actually very, very, very simple. So I would say a 5 minutes YouTube video can teach you how to make a great cup of espresso. Then it's up to you to make sure that you go and practice.
Do you see, I'm going to ask you more industry-related questions. Now I understand. I didn't know this for a very long time. I thought you guys are, predominantly working for the restaurant industry or hotels or, F&B basically. You guys obviously have now your lines of machines for home use. But I'm more interested in the industry part because, as you said, I think it's sometimes when you go to a specialty coffee place, it looks overwhelming of what they do. It's fascinating. People love it. That's why coffee probably costs double than it would cost in a restaurant. But then there is a big gap because when you go to a restaurant, you very often meet a bad cup of coffee, even coming from a good piece of machinery, right? So do you see people actually coming to your events and bartenders or baristas be interested in reaching out to you guys? Hey, can I be a barista? How can I be a barista? Where can I learn? Or this is mainly you guys are approaching the restaurant and doing your trainings and all your educational bits? Because obviously you guys are reaching out in a lot of different channels. I think Marzocco is really good at that. That's one of the reasons we actually wanted to partner with you guys. But do you see that now, employees are also, start to be more and more interested? Like, bartenders. A couple of years back, it was a big trend. People suddenly wanted to be bartenders because they were interested in mixology. Now I see for a few years the same with coffee. Do you guys really feel this?
Yeah, there is a shift in terms of understanding coffee. And it comes with, obviously, the help of the specialty coffee shops. Because there are specialty coffee shops in every corner, at some point, sooner or later, you're going to tumble up in one and going to have a meeting or a breakfast or whatever that might be. So now, whereas just 10 years ago, you are really exposed to specialty coffee. And again, the coffee shop scene is something that it's very, very, very competitive. You have lots of roasteries, different types of origins, different brewing methods, and different ways of serving, and different sizes of cups, and so on and so forth. The level of understanding of a good cup of coffee is been on the rise, thankfully, to these specialty coffee guys. However, it doesn't just stop there, because there are a lot of training campuses by SCA, certified, so on and so forth, where not just industry people, but average normal folks who are tired of their Nespressos, they want to go and understand why there is, a filter coffee in a specialty coffee shop that it costs 45 dirham. And you don't always get the explanation at the coffee shop, because people just say, oh, this origin and this process and this altitude of the coffee and so on and so forth and this roast. So the information is not clear. And for people to understand why specialty coffee is more expensive, why a good cup of coffee should be appreciated, and how to brew it and how to go about it, we need, again, the coffee roaster guys to make sure that they build their campuses, they train every single person out there. Our job is to make sure that we give them the facilities and provide them with all what they need. Not just love and care and support, but the right machinery. And we preach a lot about water, because your cup of coffee is 98% water. In Dubai, just like in many other places, the water is very, very salty, and this is our enemy. So you want to make sure that you use a good water.
It sounds to me very much like, I would almost compare it to wine, because obviously, wine is one of those that you go to a restaurant, you open the wine list, and you see a
Hundreds.
wide variety of not just, the different types of wines, but the pricing. Some of them are, 200 dirham a bottle. Some of them are 100,000 dirham a bottle. So unless you can, rectify this or explain this to the guest, why is it cost that much? People would never buy it. So obviously now it's prestige and a lot of things goes with it. But I think coffee is in this exact trajectory where, education is one of the most important part of it. Now, from a restaurant operator point of view, so obviously you guys are having some serious machinery. They are not cheap. How do you have to convince, or how do you convince, financing, for example? Because you know very well, in the UAE especially, but I think in most parts of the world, many restaurants are run by finance. It's not necessarily, the general manager who's a decision maker. They have to pull decisions through finance and many other different levels. How do you convince people that actually this is a good investment?
Right, it's a very fair question, but we don't need to convince, and this is the beauty about it. There are simple maths that you can show to finance, and I would say especially for hotels. So hotel operators should really listen into this, but their return of investment is actually not being jinxed just because they buy an expensive piece of equipment. Just to say it. In a hotel or in a restaurant, you're not going to be saving on glassware. So not clearly, your glasses are going to be very expensive. Your cutlery is going to be very expensive. It gets lost. It gets thrown in the bin. Your plates are going to break, and so on and so forth. But just to go back to simple things that maybe not so fragile and maybe a bit bigger and maybe cost a lot more, your tabletops in your restaurant, your bar counter in your restaurant costs a lot of money, right? People don't save on it because they understand it. So when you go down to the equipment side, you can go to a hotel and you can ask them, so why are you not buying the cheapest screens of TV? Why are you buying Samsung? What's behind for you to buy a Sony TV? Why are you getting a Bose speaker set in the room rather than getting a cheap version? They don't know how to.
They consider it as an investment.
Correct. It's considered as an investment, right? They understand that this is a quality. This name tag, this brand has a certain price tag, and with that certain price tag, you get a certain quality and attract a certain crowd. So the finance team is 50% of the challenge, and the purchasing guys are another 50% of the challenge. A lot of people would like to have our machines, but they don't want to commit to the purchase. And this is where the issue comes from. In the coffee industry, there are a lot of coffee suppliers where they will go and throw in a free coffee machine just to take the account and able to start providing coffee and selling coffee, because that's their business, selling coffee beans, selling milk powders, whatever it is for
maintenance has to come with
and
it.
Maintenance and warranties and obviously all of that for a hotel or for a bigger account. When you receive a free piece of equipment, you suddenly don't appreciate it. Regardless what is it. Regardless it was cheap or more expensive. If it comes for free, you don't appreciate it. Now, because you have got the equipment for free, you are now locked into the contract with this coffee supplier for X years. You are indirectly paying for that machine, which perhaps as 100%. Per the contract, you end up owning it after 3 years or you don't, and so on and so forth. But within your coffee price, you're paying for that equipment.
100%.
Now, per se, you have a new property, a new hotel. You go and sign a contract to get X machines, and you're going to be consuming X kilos of coffee per month, per year for your new property. If 6 months down in the line, you don't make that purchase or you make a lot more purchase, your prices are inflated because you're paying not just for the coffee, but you're paying for included maintenance and a free on loan machine. But perhaps your maintenance guys from the provider is lacking on speed, knowledge, spare parts, and so on and so forth, and you want to get out of that contract,
the problem.
Now the headache started. Instead of doing the right math and understanding that even some of our most expensive machines, if you do a breakdown and you understand how many cups of coffee you're going to be selling per day, you can have a return of investment within 30 days.
Wow.
And this is a key where people don't really want to make the right assumptions. So if you make the purchase of a La Marzocco machine, or in fact any quality machines, you're going to be having an investment that will have a clear return of investment. If you don't like your supplier, you can change it. If you don't like the next supplier, you can change it. You're not locked. Plus, thankfully, La Marzocco equipment are lasting long because of the build quality, because of the components, because of the materials that we use. Therefore, this is not an investment for 1 year, but it can be part of your depreciation and on your bottom of your P&L for next 5 to 7 years.
Absolutely. Plus, what I learned that you guys actually can sell these machines almost the same price as you bought it. Actually, is like keep holding the price. It's very interesting what you told me last time.
Yeah.
It really caught my attention. That sometimes
Correct.
vintage machines actually increasing in price, which is almost like a Rolex. So it is something new to me. Okay.
We just came across a machine last week that was produced in 2010. That's an old FB70, a 4-group machine, FB70 that we stopped producing many, many years ago. It's just resurfaced and it required a board. And with one of our guys out there to make sure that it goes back on the road and continues serving. So since 2010, that machine has seen a lot of cup of coffee.
Wow.
It went through on a lot of espressos and a lot of cappuccinos and a lot of maintenance and a lot of abuse. And it's still out there and it's still running and it's working and somebody's making money with it. So somebody coming and saying, your machines are expensive, again, I want to repeat, they haven't done their math.
What are the pain points that you have and perhaps people don't see from the outside? Being general manager of La Marzocco, I'm sure it's quite a bit of a job working with so many restaurants and dealing with so many different people, suppliers and all that. So what is a pain point that people don't see from outside?
Yeah, so we are a very small team, but we are a very strong team. And
lean, as we say.
Yeah,
in our company circles.
If we would say what is the biggest pain point, I would say I cannot be in 10 places at the same time. And I cannot be talking about La Marzocco in 10 different places at the same time. I wish I could, but we only have 24 hours, same like everybody has. And I say this is the biggest pain point right now, that we don't actually have time for everything, because we have been so busy and the market has been growing and the market is growing and the market is very hungry to keep on buying new machines, older machines, customized machines, and so on. So customer service has always been something that we pride of, because we want to make sure that we're there for people. If you have bought a machine from one of our resellers, but the machine is not working, the very first thing people now do is that they contact us. They don't necessarily go back to their coffee supplier. So we always have to go and investigate of where the machine has been bought from, who's the coffee supplier, and we try to help everybody. So us as La Marzocco, we need to be the big brother and kind of support everybody on every level. There are baristas who are reaching out to us on a daily basis, asking about how the new TDS sensor works in our new Strata, because they don't understand it, because there has not been fully explained to them when they purchase the machine. And they're very concerned about their TDS because it affects their cup of coffee. So the communication from the brand point of view, it always has to be very clear, very easy to understand, narrowed down, and it's constant. So this city doesn't stop. This market is super hungry, as I said. You have phone calls, emails, WhatsApps, you name it, 24/7, 365.
It's funny how much similarity I hear compared to, what we're dealing with on a daily basis. I think, every successful business essentially boiling down to a couple of fundamental basics. One, which is, clear communication, giving the right service with your product, hold the hands of the customers. You can have the best products in the world if the implementation is not there, or if the support is not there. In fact, this is something that I realized in my early ages as a founder, that most of our competitors are failing on customer support, and this is where we want to focus on. But Let's get to the next question. This is actually something really interesting for me. You guys are doing some crazy collaborations. Porsche, Pocket Trainer. Why you guys are doing this? How a coffee machine comes to, okay, let's collaborate with Porsche. Why you guys are doing this? Is it a pure marketing stunt, or there is another reason behind? Is it more of a lifestyle thing that you guys want to pass on, or why you do that?
So the partnerships are always born out of different regions and for different purposes. We've done Porsche because, put it that way, we kind of share the same ideology. They are a lifestyle company. They have a huge following crowd, but in a different field, just like us. And the guys in Germany, when they were doing events, they realized basically that we are sharing the same customers. When we've done the first Icons of Porsche here, we realized when we were talking to the actual customers and attendees at Icons of Porsche, we realized that anybody who's passing by, they already have a La Marzocco. And this is something that we have not known until we've done the first event with Porsche, you know. We've done another collabs with another brand called Rimowa, right? Rimowa was the same. Up until we didn't open the conversation and start talking to them, we didn't understand that we share the same customers. So whoever likes a Rimowa and wanting to get a Rimowa luggage for whatever reason, they have been already a La Marzocco customer, or they would be wanting to get into buying a La Marzocco machine, but they were afraid because they didn't know, they didn't understood. So the collabs are often just a cool opportunity and almost a push where, you know, I want to buy a machine, 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 and then suddenly you just go, poof, now you're there. You did it, you committed, you jump. It's the same with the luggage, it's the same with the Porsche. A lot of people are often contemplating and, oh, I want this Porsche and I want this Porsche and I want this car, because that's your dream car. Everybody grows up thinking about one day when I grow up and I'm gonna have money and, you know, I'm gonna be buying my Porsche. But everybody has their dream car, everybody has their dream Porsche and type. So when we choose collabs, we try to be very careful and understanding who are they and what's their ideology and what's their what's the outcome of the...
I would think so. I mean, you guys can, you know, you have the opportunity to choose. Obviously, new companies, they don't really have the opportunity. Therefore, I see very often new companies jumping into collabs that is not matching, you know, what they're trying to do, or they just really desperate and, you know, let's grab every opportunity. We have the same situation right now where we, you know, getting different requests, but, you know, in the beginning, while we were trying to please everybody, now we start to say, hold on a minute, who are we stand for? Is this other company looking like us? Are they trying to achieve something that's matching our values? So I would think that for you guys, obviously, it is super difficult. Obviously, our companies are not on the same level yet. But you guys have to really, really carefully select who you're working with. And I can only imagine the mindset behind it. How many people you guys are working on marketing for La Marzocco? Actually, this is something really interesting.
Ooh, I wouldn't know it from the top of my head. We have... We have now over 800 people in the company worldwide, many branch offices and obviously many resellers and so on and so forth. I would say the companies that we're doing collabs with, they don't necessarily have to be big, right? They don't necessarily have to be famous. They don't necessarily have to be the greatest. We have done smaller collabs, you know, with different clothing brands where we just done a clothing or some sort of merchandise, what we went on and sell. So again, belonging to the brand and committing to buying a machine with a certain investment, now you're part of the family. And the merchandise always comes along. So we have crazy merchandise. We have everything from the gym bags to the basketball to a surfboard to a backpack to boxing punch bag and skateboard and you name it. There are there are also other things where we don't necessarily want to be so loud. So because we're an equipment company that builds great espresso machines, but we somehow want to be the cool guys, we need to be sometimes just very, very easy about what we want to do with it. So clothing, we've done very nice jackets that are actually sailing jackets. And it's all been distributed between our offices and between our staff. And it's, some people will just go and buy it and all that, but it's mainly for us, So we help the little brands and somebody who's starting off and somebody who has a cool idea. And this is how actually Mod Bar started, our under-counter coffee machine that is now on the rise and a lot of people are using it.
What is that?
Mod Bar.
Mod Bar.
Mod Bar, which is a built-in coffee machine solution. And all what you see is the espresso tap or steam and so forth on the top, and the actual machine is underneath.
Right.
Yes. So last year was one of the greatest years for us.
I actually just wanted to ask this. What are the latest trends that is happening in coffee right now? So Mod Bar is actually one of those?
Mod Bar is one of those.
Is it happening in restaurants as well, or is it more for like home use?
It happens right now you go into the IFC and there was an Asian place that they've done a custom colored Mod Bar right in the bar counter in their cocktail bar. So it's no longer back of house, no longer the whatever machine hidden. I don't want to hear the sound and I don't want to hear the steam and so on and so forth. It's right in front of your customers, built in your cocktail bar.
In my opinion, as it should be. I mean, the sound of a coffee machine in a restaurant is like, the kind of noise you want to hear. I never understood when, coffee machine used to be, or it still is in many restaurants hidden at the back. Yeah. Just something very weird.
Once you start hearing the coffee noises, then one of the tables soon is going to be leaving.
Yeah.
So you understand that, hey, listen, somebody's already finishing their lunch or their dinner in 10, 15, 20 minutes.
Pro tip for the reception.
15, 20 minutes, you're going to be having a table free. Now there's another table to be sold or guests to be seated.
How smart is that?
Yeah, extremely. But once it's in the back of the house, you will not know it.
So let's break down a couple of expression or slang in the coffee world that might not everybody understand.
Sure.
Specialty coffee, just what the hell is that?
Specialty coffee refers to the coffee bean grading. So when you harvest and the coffee is being collected and processed, the guys are going to be doing a cupping, right? So they're going to be taking samples of coffee. They're going to be checking the quality of the coffee, the sizes of the beans, and so on. Once you do your cupping, is when you're actually being determined what is the quality, how high is the quality of the coffee. So the cupping score is what you often see in the packaging of specialty coffees or the bags actually on the specialty coffees.
Is cupping tasting?
Cupping is tasting, yes, but it's a different method of trying coffee rather than sipping. So you have a small bowl-like cup where there is coffee being grinded, and then it's just simply topped up with hot water, stirred up, and let it brew. Once the coffee settles, then you go and have a cupping spoon, which is a very deep, almost a soup spoon-like spoon, where you go and sip it, and you have to aerate it, just like when you're tasting wine or
Got it.
any other beverage, but you want to actually feel the real flavors. So the cupping score comes from a certain group of people who does the rates, and then you end up receiving or buying those green beans, whichever form that it is, knowing that this cup of coffee is, 82 points.
Right. Single origin.
Single origin, yes, it's another big thing that people often don't understand. So a single origin doesn't really mean that it's a single farm. Okay. So a single origin cup of coffee could be coming from an area of Ethiopia, for instance.
But not a single origin, not a country. So it has to be a specific area within a country. It cannot be just from Ethiopia.
Ideally, yes. You might find some coffee roasters that would mix, different regions of Ethiopia. Okay, that could be still called a single origin because ideally it's still called, Ethiopia. It still comes from the same country, but regions versus regions would have a massive difference in altitude, in climate, in the type of soil, and so on and so forth.
Right.
So people who are actually understanding coffee and buying the green beans, they would not want to mix with two different, area of coffees because the flavors will be different, the cupping score will be different, and then now suddenly you're blending it, so it's going to be hard to match and come out with the right roasting profile to get to the right flavor.
Right. What are your top 3 tips for making a decent cup of coffee?
Well, very, very simple.
Water, I guess?
Good water, good coffee, good machine. Now, when we say a good machine, that I'm not necessarily meaning an espresso machine, okay? You will have to know that a good cup of coffee doesn't necessarily have to be brewed in an espresso. So these days, the brewing methods are super, super versatile. You can make a good cup of coffee at home just by a French press. Just by a simple French press that used to be so popular all over the world.
Yeah.
And now nobody drinks it. Nobody drinks a French press. If your cup of coffee is good, your actual raw material is good, your temperature of water and the quality of water is good, a French press can make a really good cup of coffee. And look at it that way. To buy a French press is not expensive. So you don't necessarily need a very expensive equipment to brew a nice cup of coffee.
If you could share one thing that every coffee drinker should know, what would that be?
If you cannot drink your coffee without sugar, then don't drink it.
Right on.
Life is just too short for bad coffee, so...
No, right on. I totally agree with that. I think I stopped drinking coffee with sugar about 10 years ago. And obviously, it was coming from an Italian friend of mine. I mean, the Italians are always drinking, coffee without sugar. And I think for a normal coffee drinker, when you used to it, to drink it with sugar, it's just impossible to think that you can do it without. And in fact, when you try it for the first time, it is a bit of a shock. But then I think it literally took maybe 2 or 3 times drinking it without. And, literally after like the 3rd time, I was like, you know what, actually it's much better without sugar. Now I feel the real taste of it. And obviously you don't have to just like, bottom up your cup of coffee or your espresso. You can actually enjoy it. And it's a whole different feeling. But I think once you go no sugar, it's actually impossible to go back to it.
Yeah.
100% agree with that. All right. Before we would wrap up with some fire questions, some yay or nay questions, I would like to ask you this last question. If you were running coffee, what's the next thing for you?
Very good question. Some sort of tech, either fintech or some sort of tech that,
Fintech, interesting.
I can get my brain as well as my skills to be used. I love the field of machinery. I'm very inclined to understand more and learning more. We're constantly developing new things. We're constantly building new things, and it's very fascinating how an issue of the real world, an issue of real world can be solved with our R&D and developed to help people out there in the field, making sure that their good cup of coffee is more consistent, it's easier to make, it's more reliable, it can be faster, it can be better. And we listen to the market. So when we come up with a new machine, with a new technology, with a new patent, with a new idea, it doesn't necessarily come just from us. We try to go out there and listen to the industry leaders saying, what is it that they're missing from their espresso machines, Starting from the steaming wand where everybody used to put, a piece of rubber in it to not burn your fingers on it. Now we have Pro Touch where you cannot burn your fingers. So it gives a simple peace of mind. And it's such a tiny thing, but it makes a massive difference during the operation when you're busy and you know, you're just in it and trying to hold that little rubber with your finger and not touch any other part, but you know, your colleagues is next to you and you're trying to steam the milk, but then somebody is now coming to the till and they're it's just a tricky thing to do. How simple is that? With a double isolation, saying you can grab the steaming wand, whatever part you want it, except from the bottom, clearly, because that's gonna be in your
100%.
in your milk jar to steam the milk. How simple is that? Very, very simple, right? And to have this in all of our machines, it's a big thing, because people are often going to say, you know, now I'm in a comfort zone. Now I know that I can do this, and they get used to it. So obviously humans are always going to be humans, right? Once you have a minute and you can lay down, you will want to lay down. Once you know that this machine will never burn your fingers, now you're used to it. The next place where you go to work, you will want the same machine. You would want to make sure that your fingers don't get burned anymore. And I can carry on with many other examples, but some of this would be comes down to the simplicity of what you want to achieve, because there is a reason to solve this, not necessarily issue, but something that can make your life slightly bit easier.
All right. So I have a couple of rapid questions for you.
Okay.
It's an either or. Okay. So
Okay.
no time to think.
Okay.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee or water?
Coffee.
Coffee or wife? Arabica or Robusta?
Ooh, Arabica.
No coffee or no water today?
No water.
Milk-based or black coffee?
Black coffee.
Latte or flat white?
Flat white.
V60 or AeroPress?
V60.
Cold brew or ice Americano?
Cold brew.
Single origin or house blend?
Single origin.
Manual brew or machine?
Machine.
Third wave coffee or old school Italian coffee shop?
Third wave.
Perfection or progress?
Perfection.
Early mornings or late nights?
Early mornings.
Inbox zero or organized chaos?
Organized chaos.
Leading or supporting?
Leading.
Always learning or always teaching?
Always learning.
Long-term vision or short-term wins?
Long term.
Soft opening or grand launch?
Soft opening.
Pack Friday service or quiet Monday prep?
Back Friday.
All right, and the last question, front of house or back of house?
Front of house.
Now we're talking. All right, thank you very much for joining in
Thank you.
today. It was an awesome talk, and thank you very much for tuning in. I hope to see you guys in the next one. Thank you.